The views and opinions expressed on the cap are those of the hosts. They do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of OldMilk Media. Any opinions stated aren't intended to offend anyone. On this episode of the Cat Podcast, we react To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar on the album's 10th year anniversary. Welcome back. This is your critical but accurate tour through hip hop, the Cat Podcast. It's episode 603. We are your tour guides. I'm Nate Sperling. That's Taylor McLeod. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever else you might be tuning in. Feel free to go ahead, join the conversation by leaving a comment, liking this video, subscribing to the channel. That being said, Taylor, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I can't believe it's been 10 years since this album came out. And just in like my time listening and really caring to, hip hop and rap, 2015 is a really, really special year to me. Maybe like the most special year to me out of any year that I've been invested. So always glad to talk about something that came out this year, especially when it's a album like this.
Yeah, I completely agree. I would amend your statement a little bit, in my opinion, to say 2015 and 2016 for me. But like ultimately, I completely agree with you that 2015, in my lifetime, is probably one of the most important years, of my lifetime in general. Just like being in high school and developing, into the man I am today. And
Yeah.
then like the great music, the great TV shows that we had at that time also, like the NBA probably was better than it is now. I mean, maybe that's a little bit biased, but overall, like it's just nothing but good times that when I think about 10 years ago in 2015. So, yeah, that being said, on this episode, we are reacting To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. The album is 16 tracks, 1 hour and 19 minutes long, featuring George Clinton, Thundercat twice, Bilal twice, Anna Wise twice, Snoop Dogg, James Fauntleroy, Ronald Isley, and Rhapsody. The original release date for this album is the day that we are recording right now, March 15th, 2025. That being said, Taylor, what would you describe the impact of this album being for yourself personally and then also the genre of hip hop?
Yeah. So, I mean, this came out right when we were really shifting to streaming because I remember it when if you're reading this, it came out, or if you're reading this, it's too late came out, and that was like the first like, all right, this is like release streaming, like you know what I mean, first and everything, and that was like a month before this. So the first thing I think about, not the first thing when I think about the album, but in terms of like when it came out, was that it got leaked, the clean version. Do you remember that? It got released, the clean version, like early
I
on like
might
a
have I might have
Sunday
remembered
night.
that a little bit.
It came out like the clean version just showed up on Apple Music or Spotify or whatever, and then they had to release the actual version behind it because it was like, all right, well, if the clean version is like already out there, then they need the real album, right? There's no sense in waiting or whatever. So that's what I think about. But in terms of impact, for me, I was probably a bigger Kendrick fan then than I am now. And that's not to say I'm not a big Kendrick fan now. It's just he was releasing more often then. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? He was definitely more involved. Not talking about last year, but just in general, he was more active than I would say. So I was very excited for it. It came out and it kind of opened my eyes. That album opened my eyes to like what a rap album really could be,
Hmm.
right? Like I think you have so many albums and you look at them as albums, but at 16 years old, this is the first album that came out that felt like a movie. You know what I mean? This is the first album for me, at least, that came out that really felt like cinematic, and it puts you in a place, and everything is so intricate and so well put together that it just opened my eyes to the possibility. And then impact on hip hop and rap in general, I think it solidified Kendrick as like one of the greatest thinkers ever in the
Hmm.
genre. I think it solidified him as one of the greatest artists ever in the genre. And whether you consider this his second or his third album, like it's super impressive that's how it was. And then on the actual like music side of it, I do think that this inspired a little bit of bringing like real instruments
Hmm.
into rap for a little while because that like mid 2010s era, you had like a lot more, I think, real instrumentation before like the SoundCloud stuff took over, and then it's like the heavy 808s and the trap like hi-hats and stuff. I think instrumentation's always been, a part of it, but in terms of one of the biggest artists in the game doing it, like I think that was one of the first examples, at least that I remember. So it had a huge impact. Obviously, I think it won a Pulitzer. I think this album did. So
It
it's
was
like,
it was Damn that won the Pulitzer. I don't
oh,
think
okay,
this.
sorry.
Yeah. Um.
Oh no, this is like in the Library of Congress or like the
Yeah. It might.
Smithsonian or
Yeah.
something. Like it's like
Probably something like
cataloged like
that.
that. Yeah, so it had a massive impact,
Yeah.
and we'll get into it more, but those are the first thoughts I have.
Yeah. For me, like personally, like I remember coming off of Good Kid, Mad City. I really, really enjoyed that album. At the time, like I wasn't really super into music where I was like, oh, I need to listen to this in order, da da da. I was like, oh, like Kendrick Lamar has nice songs and they have a message behind them. Like I could get behind this. So I remember hearing I might have actually been on a school trip when I first heard like the single I, not like the album I. And I really, really enjoyed that song. I was really, really excited for the album. Um, Honestly, now that I'm thinking back on it, because now I'm like kind of like revising the story in my head a little bit. Like I at that point, I probably should have realized that Kendrick was gonna like this album was gonna be completely different from Good Kid, Mad City. Um, because like Kendrick's voice was like it's like a little more toned down than what I heard on Good Kid, Mad City. It was kind of like at the first point I was like, the first time I listened to it, I was like, is this even Kendrick in the first place? Like I didn't really fully understand the depths that he can go to with his voice. So when I first heard this album, To Pimp a Butterfly, I hated it. I genuinely did because I was like, "What is this? Like, this does not sound like Good Kid, Mad City at all." Like, I'm expecting a follow up to Good Kid, Mad City. I'm expecting it to like sound similar to Good Kid, Mad City. Like, this is the Kendrick that I like, and this is not it. Um, the one thing I'll say, well, I'm gonna say many things, but like, I think the most important thing out of the story is that this is the first album that really had to grow on me, and this is the first album that I really had to give a chance over and over and over. And I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I listened to it as many times as I have over these 10 years, over this past decade, because I can appreciate this album so much differently than I could have 10 years ago. Especially like listening to it now, like in preparing for this episode, like there were some points which we'll get to that I can appreciate now, being 26 versus being 16. So I think that that initial shock of uh this doesn't sound like Good Kid, Mad City. What's going on? Like, I think that initial shock prepared me for the rest of Kendrick's career because then like Damn doesn't sound anything like To Pimp a Butterfly. So I can take in Damn like more with the I'm more ready to receive Damn, understanding that Kendrick isn't someone who's gonna stay in one sound over the course of multiple albums. So I was ready to receive Damn. I was ready to receive Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. I was ready to receive GNX because of this initial shock and the journey I had to go through with this album in listening to it. As far as like the genre and stuff like that, like I agree with what you're saying, Taylor, about the one thing I will slightly push back on is I would say Good Kid, Mad City will probably be the one that feels more like a movie. This one does feel like a movie too. But I feel like this one like there's more of a musical artistry to it. Not saying that Good Kid, Mad City doesn't have musical artistry, but like Good Kid, Mad City is like this is like supposed to be like a movie that you could visualize in your head when you're listening to the album. This one, like with the poem and like how the poem keeps developing throughout every single song, like I forgot how it goes, but like I used to be
I
conflicted.
remember you was
I remember
conflicted,
you was conflicted. Yeah, exactly. And then like it keeps
misusing your
developing song after
influence.
song after song after song after song. And
Yeah.
then like we get to you, and then that seems to be like the apex of the poem, like the moment where the confliction for Kendrick is happening. And then after that, we get like this kind of journey of like Kendrick getting back to his roots and getting over this apex of conflict that he seems to be experiencing throughout this album. And then I think the biggest thing that may be a little trippy for some people is at the end when you have Mortal Man and then he fully reads out the poem and then it's like and then he's like, "Yeah, so that's what I wrote." And it's like he's talking to Tupac and it's like so we sat through at that time, let's say an hour and 6 minutes of you going through this journey, and it wasn't all fake. Was this real in the first place? Was this just something that you wrote just so you could get Tupac's attention, and now you finally get to speak to him in the construct of the album? So I found that to be interesting as well. I just think that this is one of the best examples of Kendrick's genius. We'll get to where it stands in Kendrick's discography later. But moving on, what are some of your favorite tracks off of this album?
Yeah, let me pull up the track list. So from the beginning, there isn't a single song on here that I've ever disliked. Like and like you said, I always listen to albums front to back, but then I would find my favorite songs and then keep those. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
This is probably the first album that I was like, no, I have to listen to this in order every single time. Like even when I ran it back the last couple days, it's like I'm listening to the full thing or I'm not listening, right? Like I don't want to get halfway. So favorites, I love the intro, Wesley's Theory.
Yes.
I think like the energy on that is crazy. It kind of get sets the tone for certain parts of the album. I wouldn't say it sets the tone for all the album, but
Mhm.
I love Institutionalized with Anna Wise and Snoop. Um, like I love that song from the beginning. But my favorite song for the last 10 years, and it maybe not isn't the same now, and we'll talk about tracks that have grown on us. But Hood Politics has
Yeah.
like always like that one always stood out to me. Probably because that feels like maybe the most traditional rap song sometimes, or at least
Mhm.
the verses do sometimes. But you have that production where it's like kind of like the shit's like going in reverse or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so I always love those three. Wesley's Theory, Institutionalized, and Hood Politics, where have always been my three.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The only one that I'm going to add into that is All Right. All Right is probably
Yeah.
like
I
I
should
can
have
make an
said singles
argument.
aside. I should have said
Yeah.
singles aside because I, King Kunta, and All Right are like
Hmm.
the three. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I should have, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah. So, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Institutionalized will be in tracks that I gained a new appreciation for. My top four is like Wesley's Theory, King Kuta, All Right, and Hood Politics. I think with Hood Politics in particular, Hood Politics is kind of weird because like I could put it in both sections. And the reason why I could put it in both sections is because like first of all, I've always loved that song. Like you said, like I've always loved that song. But additionally, I've gained a new appreciation for it because of the last verse where Kendrick's talking about like I could press the button and then like make history repeat, like West Coast, East Coast. Like that's
Yeah.
basically what he's saying. And just like going back to like last year, 2024, and seeing that we actually did have that quasi West Coast, East Coast hip hop moment. And understanding that that's what Kendrick was referencing in the first place, and then seeing it 9 years later, that gives me a new appreciation for hood politics. But like King Kunta, I mean, like I gotta kill a couple rappers, but I did it to themselves. Everybody's suicidal. They even need my help. Like I could say that whole thing, and like that's probably like my favorite. That could be my favorite part of the album now that I'm thinking about it. But like you said, like Wesley's Theory is amazing. All Right is also amazing. Like you really can't go wrong with any of these songs. And I think that in my recent because like full transparency, this is still probably out of the four that are like unanimously known as classics. This is probably my least favorite one. Not saying that it's not like incredible. It's completely
Yeah.
incredible. But like we'll get to it like later when we start ranking Kendrick's discography. But that being said, like moving on to like tracks that I gained a new appreciation for, that we gained a new appreciation for. Like I feel like these recent listens that I've been doing over the past like week or two of To Pimp A Butterfly has given me like I have like five songs here that I've gained a new appreciation for. And they are institutionalized, like I already said. For sale. That song, love that song now. How much a dollar cost? You ain't gotta lie, and Mortal Man. Like those five songs are songs that I always appreciated, but I never appreciated them to the level that I currently do now until the past 2 weeks. Just like listening to it in order and seeing like how Kendrick is piecing the track listing together. Each one of these songs has a different flavor. Each one of these songs still like it's still a cohesive album, but each one of these songs like they have like different different formulas, I'll say. And
Yeah.
I fully that shows like Kendrick's versatility while at the same time being able to keep a album cohesive. And that's why he's one of the greatest rappers of all time.
Yeah, certainly. I think people like, and this sounds crazy. I think people like listen to this album wrong a lot. Like, and they think it's like some like super like esoteric like jazz like whatever. And it's like if you listen to it, like listening back the last couple of days, it's like there's so many just like rap verses. throughout
Hmm.
this entire thing. And I
Hmm.
think people look at it like there's like no regular rapping on it, and it's like no, like this is a hip hop album. It's just like infused with a bunch of other stuff. And so like there's that, and like and that grew on me so fast in the moment. But like the songs that have grown on me over the years, over this last decade, and especially in the last couple weeks, going back as a 26-year-old listening to it with intent to really hear everything. So, being from the woods, right? Like I learned so much about like geography of the US and politics and how people feel and how like groups of people feel about certain issues through music, right? Like,
Hmm.
because like that was my exposure to it. And I think that this album, and I don't think I'm alone in this, especially being like, just say it, like being a white person, right? This like it because I like Kendrick so much already, it really made me like think deeper about a lot of stuff. And so the songs that have grown on me, they meant a lot to me when it came out because it's like so the three that stand out to me are How Much a Dollar Cost,
Hmm.
You, and For Sale.
Hmm.
And so like How Much a Dollar Costs, when I was younger, it's just like, oh yeah, this like this guy's asking Kendrick for money. He has all the money. He doesn't want to give it to him. Then he realizes he should give, you know what I mean? But now listening to it, it's like it's way more about like the time and care, right? To help someone next to you, right? Like even though it might not be like a significant amount of money or significant whatever, and like what does this dollar do? How much is this dollar worth? You know what I mean? Like it as an older person, it makes you think so much more. And then like a song like You, when it came out, I was like, man, he like left it all out there, right? But you
Hmm.
as a 16-year-old, I just hear it as like someone bearing their soul, right? I don't hear like what he's saying, I hear how he's saying it, right?
Hmm.
And then you go back through, and again, it's a similar message. It's like, and this can apply to anyone. It's like so much of what people need is just for you to like be there and care in a real way, and not prioritize whatever you have going on. Or you can prioritize it, but you have to be able to compartmentalize. And so You grew on me a lot recently because it's you hear the scream in the beginning, right? And that turned into a meme. And you hear like the his voice and him drinking on the last verse and shit like that. Like, so you hear it in a way, and you're like, man, like he really this is so emotional. But when you hear it, it's like literally just like you said you were gonna be somewhere. You said you weren't gonna change, and then you did, right? And I think that You, and then For Sale is like, to me, For Sale is the groundwork for Mr. Morale, right? Like that song to me is the groundwork for almost the entire album. That is Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, where it's like Good Kid, Mad City, Kendrick was taking over the game, right? Like he
Hmm.
was like, I'm here. I am the new West Coast. I'm one of the best rappers out. I'm one of the greatest rappers of all time. And here's one of the greatest rap albums of all time, right? Like, bar none. That For Sale is like the aftermath of like living that life of like
Yeah.
trying to be the
Yeah.
biggest, best rapper in the game, in realizing that obviously he refers to the devil as Lucifer. Lucy is always around the corner and is trying to pull you, and that's what Mr. Morale is. Obviously there's a lot of like growth and therapy and a lot of like self-reflection on Mr. Morale, but like so much, like I think of a song, I think it's what, Palisades, on
Hmm.
on Mr. Morale, where he's like he goes through everything. He's like, I was touring Good Kid, Mad City, and all these temptations around. So those are the three that really grew on me. So it's How Much a Dollar Cost, You, and For Sale. And it's just because I can digest the message
Hmm.
so much better now than I could at 16.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. Like I think that um being like having that prefrontal cortex developed really
Oh,
helps
yeah.
really solidify the message behind this album and the quality of this album also. Like the
Well,
quality was always understood, but like now it's like now I'm starting to get into the layers of that
can
quality.
can I make one more quick point
Yeah, go ahead.
on that what you said? Like the prefrontal cortex. This is 11 years into Kendrick's career. This album was.
Hmm.
Right? Like he started rapping in 2004, and that's why we can get an absolute masterpiece as your second album or your third, if Section 80 is included in that, right? And like, there's a whole life that's been lived outside of rap and inside of rap by the time we get to this album, and juxtaposing it with like what goes on today, where people just blow up when they're 19 off of one song and they haven't lived any life. Like we can't. I'm not saying we can't, but it feels like we can't get that kind of
Yeah.
project now.
Yeah.
because like Kendrick's 29 or at least 28 when he's making this as his second or third album, and that's why you get the masterpiece that is this album because he's lived life, and that's why his music continues to get better because you live more life.
Yeah. I completely agree. Like Kendrick is probably one of the best artists of honestly of all time of like taking real life situations that he personally deals with and like making it relatable to a mass audience, people of all different backgrounds and stuff like that,
Right.
and the way that he
And he
communicates
zooms
it
in and
also.
zooms out so
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Like Section 80 and Good Kid feel very zoomed in, and
hmm
then this one feels zoomed out. Mr. Morale is super zoomed in. Damn is super zoomed out,
yeah,
and then GNX is just him fucking going crazy.
yeah.
So
So let's move on to the final part of this episode where we're going to talk about Kendrick's discography. First of all, I think we can all agree that not Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly is a classic. I think we both agree with that. I think
yeah, I mean we can agree
everybody
on
agrees
both.
with that.
Yeah, we can agree
Yeah,
on both.
and Good Kid, Mad City also.
Yeah.
But what like between Good Kid, Mad City, Section 80, To Pimp a Butterfly, Damn, GNX, or Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, what is your ranking of Kendrick's discography?
So my ranking, like it's pretty set. The top two switch, but besides that, it's set. So right now I have Good Kid, Mad City 1 because I
Hmm
think that's like maybe the best rap album of all time. I have To Pimp a Butterfly 2. I have Section 83. I have GNX 4,
hmm
Mr. Morale 5, and Damn last.
Interesting. Okay. So for me, I'm gonna go worst to least. Oh, worst to best, I should say. I got Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers as the worst one. It's still great. Don't get me wrong. Like all these
Yeah,
albums are great, but like I just felt like there was like a lot of I felt like it was like really, really dense. And this is an album that compared to the other five that were I'm gonna list, like this isn't the album that I'm gonna go back to and listen to for like casual listening. Like I have to like be in a mood to listen to it. I got GNX after that at number five. I think GNX there's a chance that GNX could probably sneak into the top four, but it's still too early. Like
yeah,
the other four, like at this point, Damn is the youngest one, and Damn is like came out in 2017. So like the other four like, have like 8 years on
yeah.
GNX. So out of respect for the elderly, I guess, we have to put GNX at number five. Number four, I got To Pimp a Butterfly. Really good album. Like going through it again, like I said before, like I've gained a new appreciation for it. But like, damn, like I just remember like in 2017 listening to Damn and like being around like some friends at the time and we were all like just like going crazy about Damn. Like I just remember that experience. They're like the whole album front to back amazing. I love the storytelling on that. It won a Pulitzer. That's why I have it over to Butterfly. Good Kid, Mad City, I have at number two, because like it's arguably the greatest rap album of all time, like Taylor said. But for me personally, um, I think the reason why I can't have it at number one is because maybe I just overplayed it too much.
Yeah.
And I don't really go back to it as much anymore because like I just listened to it so many times. And that's the difference between Good Kid, Mad City and Section 80 for me. Like Section 80 is probably going to be an evergreen album for me. Like I can put it on right now and listen to the whole thing and then still enjoy it. Not saying I wouldn't enjoy the other three, but like Section 80 is the one that speaks the most to me, I feel like. Especially when you get to songs like Poe Man Dreams and you get to songs like Ronald Reagan era. Um, I'm mad they took Spiteful Chant off of the Spotify though. That's kind of annoying. But besides that, like Section 80 is still like a masterpiece, and that's why that's in my opinion the best Kendrick album. But yeah, this has been the Cat Podcast episode 603. What's your favorite song from Pepper Butterfly? Make your voice heard in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to like this video, subscribe to the channel, check out our previous episodes on Mac Miller's Balloonerism or Lil Baby's Wham, and we have other episodes, obviously. Also, make your voice heard in the poll by deciding if To Pimp a Butterfly is a classic, fire, mid, or trash. Follow Old Milk on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Old Milk Media. Check out oldmilk.co for more information. I'm Nate Sperlin, that is Taylor McLeod, and we will be back when hip hop tells us to be. We are out. Thank you for watching.